Well. Wonders never cease. I see found Andrew Holness as clean as a whistle. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for stopping by, keeping me company as usual. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Please remember to subscribe, hit that like button if you like the contents, share, as well as leave your comments. To all of my subscribers and my regular viewers, welcome back. You know you're deeply appreciated. And yes, I have something as usual interesting for you. I'm going to be speaking about the Prime Minister's statutory declarations, and based on what the IC Integrity Commission has reported, I have something to say on it. And I surely shall say something. In the meanwhile, please go ahead, and you know the ropes, right? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up from now, because once I start, you don't want to stop. You just want to go on. You don't want to lose concentration. So go ahead, give the video a thumbs up, as well as share. Of course, as usual, I thank you in advance. All right, so let me start. Now, in this report from the Integrity Commission, which was tabled on Tuesday, and the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, gave his explanation to the nation about what is in the report and his own views on it. He might feel a little hard done that so much of his personal life has been delved into. I've heard another MP express that as well, that they feel that the Integrity Commission is intrusive. And I explained, don't worry about it, it's what they have to do because of the nature of your job. I don't think he was much consoled by it, but I did try my best. Anyway, so what is the genesis of all this now? The Integrity Commission, you recall, started in 2017. At any rate, that was when the law was passed. In 2018, they started to receive statutory declarations up till now. And they haven't been doing well in terms of certifying those declarations, because they're supposed to do it for all of the civil servants, the politicians, everybody who is obliged by the law to submit these declarations, who are in government employment or government bodies. Now, according to the law, the two statutory declarations for declarants, the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, those are the only two that are required by law to be gazetted, meaning to say they are public information. It is not all of what they submitted that would be published. What will be published would be the summary. So what we have been seeing so far would be the summaries of the declarations of Andrew Holness and Mark Golding, the Englishman. Me had to put in that, right? So what we have now, because of this investigation, is detail. Gracious me, you want to see how them dig. And in as much as Mr. Holness may feel aggrieved, he should be very happy that they went and delved so deeply into his affairs and brought it to public notice. Because there are persons, including myself, sometimes been saying some very naughty things about him. And Jamaican people, they believe that he was not an honest Prime Minister, not even an MP. They thought he was corrupt. And what this delving into his affairs would do is either prove the fact or disprove the fact that he is corrupt. This is going to either lift him or sink him in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of the international community. I am telling you. I am of the view that both the leader of the opposition and the prime minister, if we have a new prime minister, their affairs should be delved into as deeply as this, because this now is what is going to determine confidence in our system. Had this report been negative, badly negative towards the prime minister, it would have shown and reflected very badly on the country. A lot of businesses would have been affected, including the banking system and any other businesses at all that have to do business abroad. And therefore, I'm sure they are all very relieved at the details and the results, including the recommendations by the Integrity Commission. Now, there were 2 investigations that were carried out. The first was occasioned by the fact that in the Prime Minister's 2021 declaration, he omitted to mention that he had 3 bank accounts. Those bank accounts were not included in the declarations at that time. In the first column, you see the bank accounts, right? In the second column, it says 2021 received March 29, 2022. The last 3 accounts you see is blank. You see there are no figures there. Those were the 3 accounts that was not declared at that time. 2 of them were with First Global Bank, a checking account and a savings account. The checking account in the far right had a balance of $3,248 and $200 in the savings. Oh, it's euro. It's 200 euros in the savings account. Now, this is a statement now from the First Global Bank accounts. You see the current account. Look at that. In 2016, you see that 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. As you can see, for the current account, which is a Jamaican dollar account, no transaction took place. No transaction, 0. And in the savings account for the euros, in 2016, when the accounts were open, well, yes, you can see that there were 2 transactions, one in 2016, one in 2019, one in 2021. I suspect that the 2 that you see in 2021 was to close the accounts. In other words, the accounts would have been dormant if they were sitting there so long. It shows that the current account was actually opened January 10 in 2005, and there were no transactions until 2021 when he would have put money in there and it closed. I know because I'm a customer of First Global Bank, and I had a recent account that was dormant. I had to go through all the rigmarole, and as if I was opening an account aquariously, and then I had to make a small deposit to open it. So if I wanted to close it, that's what I would have to do. He, in his position as Prime Minister with the Integrity Commission, he should not have any account at all in his name. And that apparently was the situation. So he had to close that one because he wasn't using it. So that explained that. Now, based on the language that is being used here in 5.4.2, it is to be noted that on the initial submission of his 2021 statutory declaration, Mr. Holness did not declare National Commercial Bank Jamaican current account bearing account number 62. This account was included in the addendum to Declaration 1. Mr. Holness's submission did not include the 2 FGB bank accounts bearing the respective account numbers 7 and 74. However, these accounts were subsequently disclosed on Declaration 2. So what happened? When they discovered, they were asking into his affairs, and they found that he had this account with $360-something in it. It came up, and they found that it wasn't declared when they checked his statutory declarations. It not being declared, they brought it to his attention. And the one at First Global Bank appears to have been the same. these accounts were not being used by him and he didn't declare it, but it came up when they asked the bank to produce information about his accounts. You're following now? Good. So when they found out about the first one first, which was the NCB account, he had submitted an addendum to his 2021 declaration. Subsequently, they found out about the First Global Bank account, and what he did was to submit a second declaration. It was an amended declaration because it was so wrong, the information in it. And it is when he submitted the second declaration now, the amended declaration to 2021, which means it would replace the one that he had submitted to make good these omissions. That was when now they started to now examine the declaration, and they found what they thought were unexplained increases in his assets. So in the first investigation, which took place in 2022, they were investigating him for making false statements on his report by omission. They then found that once everything was corrected and they start their examination, they then found what they thought was unexplained wealth, as I said before. And so now the investigation into the amended 2021 declaration was what gave rise now to the suspicion, or I should say the investigation of illicit enrichment under the Corruption Prevention Act. So it says here in 5.8.1, subsequent on the referral from the commissioners, which inter alia indicates that Mr. Holness' net worth grew by 51 million over the 5-year period that ended the 31st of December 2021. Unexplained changes in net worth was calculated as 4.4 million for the year ended December 31, 2021. So the second investigation is about this unexplained increase in wealth to the tune that they calculated of 4.4 million. You heard the Prime Minister in Parliament yesterday saying that the test they use, the figure that they use, the calculation was in error. I guess it's his accountant would have told him that. And that the amount really was 1.4 million or something to that effect, right? That they now would say of all of what he submitted, he's worth 1.3 million from the year before, and this is US dollars. This 250,000 equivalent US dollars is something now that will be significant were it so. Of course, if it's a quarter of that, it may not be as significant and they may not have looked into it. But because the test that they applied to the declaration is so high, they decided that they had to look into it to see what and where did this money come from. They need to find a source for this money. And that was what caused the second investigation to occur. It also involved and would have involved making a false statement. And that now was generated from the fact that after they examined the amended 2021 declaration, they then found out that he also left out 4 accounts that had his name. And those are the accounts you heard about now with his father. The account was opened in 1989. His mother, one of the accounts opened in 1975 when he was 74 when he was 12, and one when he was 13. His name was added. And one with his mother, him and his sister. You understand? And so that now you would have heard all of that from everybody else, so we won't get into that. So we now are going to pick up from here, because when this investigation started, and the investigation into illicit enrichment started in May 3, 2023, that was when it was referred to the Director of Investigation. So the Director of Information and Complaints would have observed the gap and reported it to the commissioners, recommending investigations to discover, what this is about. And they in turn handed that over to the Director of Investigations, May 3, 2023, and he commenced his investigations 2 days after on May 5. And he would have sent that information, it says in the report, to the Prime Minister that, they are opening an investigation into his statutory declarations again for possible illicit enrichment and making false statements on his statutory declaration. So that's where it began. So just to back it up a little, the first investigation into his declaration was referred to the Director of Investigation by the commissioners on the 30th of September 2022. That investigation was completed February 19 of 2023, but the commissioners did not send the report to the Parliament to be tabled, as is required by law. And it would appear as though they didn't send it to the Parliament because they were aware that the Director of Information and Complaints was examining the new declaration that was submitted, the amended 2021 declaration, and they wanted to see if all was well. Well, it wasn't. They now found this 4.4 million that they believe was unexplained increases in Prime Minister Holness's net worth. So they had to hold on to that. Now, make no sense to send one and then there is a possible, addition. And the recommendation that was made by the Director of Investigation, because he was, he closed the case now, the first investigation, that's closed. And his recommendation was not to proceed with it any further because he got satisfactory explanation, which was proved by documentary evidence that it was not a deliberate act. For you to be charged for making a false statement, it has to be deliberate. They have to prove that he knew that he was leaving out these accounts, and they couldn't prove it. His explanations given, they found satisfactory, and the evidence suggests he wasn't using these accounts. Right? Me have accounts with NCB from about 30 years ago. When I'm done with the account, I just take out the money, leave whatever is in it, and don't pay no attention to it. And then I know it's going to go dormant, and that's that. Well, he in his position, and none of the MPs in their position, they can't do that. Or the government people. They have to actually go in and officially close the account. And that is what he didn't do at that time. So that was that. Now on to the second investigation. That one is interesting. And I am telling you, did they dig? They dig. If they were digging a hole in the earth, they would have reached the other side by now. How them dig into the man's affairs. My word. So let me begin my examination now of the investigations. The second investigation commenced on May 5, 2023, nearly 3 months after the first investigation was closed. That's when the second one was initiated. And that's because of that 4 million that they thought was unexplained wealth. And what the new investigation did as well was to delay the tabling of the Prime Minister's statutory declarations. That was the effect of what they did. So when we were wondering what was going on, that was what was going on behind the scenes. So what was it that the IC did? Did they sit down and twiddle their thumb? Certainly not. They were busy. Listen to this. So the Integrity Commission, right, through the Director of Investigations, sought and received witness statements for Holness and his companies. He had 3 companies, and he also had a foundation. The company we're talking about now is Imperium Investment Holdings Limited, which sounds like it was a holding company. The second company is called Estate Bridge Development Company Limited, and the third, Positive Media Solution Limited. We are going to be visiting them And I think we should call one Imperium, the other one Estate Bridge, and the other one Positive. Although the foundation is also called Positive, right? So those are the accounts that they found that was associated with Andrew Holness. And they were looking into them. So they said now, on May 26, 2023, they sent a letter to Andrew Holness giving him an update, because they had sent a letter before, remember, on the 5th, that they were doing this investigation in his declarations for breaches perhaps on the section 14.5 of the Corruption Prevention Act, which is to do with illicit enrichment, unexplained wealth, and the 43.2a of the Integrity Commission Act, which has to do with false statements, making a false statement knowingly on your report. So they sent him a letter and notified him, and then they sent another letter giving him a little update. Now I want you to listen to this and make notes, right? After that, they requested and received witness statements. Notice the language that they use, witness statements, meaning to say that this is what they were going to keep on file. This is not just them sending information. Witness statements, they had to send it in the form of a witness statement. On accounts held by those three companies I mentioned, from NCB Private Banking Division, NCB Capital Market for two of the companies, NCB Matilda's Corner on the Prime Minister, that's where he has his account. Then you have Barita Investments Limited, Bank of Nova Scotia on the Prime Minister's accounts there, and three of the companies. They have accounts for three of the companies as well. Then they sent to the company's office. They sent to the Tax Administration of Jamaica, the National Motor Vehicle Registration. They wanted to know about vehicles that were owned, possibly owned by the Prime Minister, his son Adam, and three of the companies. They sent to the National Land Agencies for information on the Prime Minister, somebody named Norman Brown, C.J. Anderson, which is the Prime Minister's sister, Adam Holness, and the three companies. And I should tell you that when they sent this information requesting statements from National Land Agency, it appears to me to be a phishing exercise. What do I mean by that? They wanted them to do a broad check, just drop in their name in the system and see what come up. So they will put in Andrew Holness and they might say 1 property, 2 property, no property. You follow me? That is what they would call a phishing exercise. So, and they got reports from all of those institutions and government agencies in due course. Indeed, the Director of Investigations began receiving information from the various institutions on the 9th of June 2023. And the fishing expedition that they went to through the National Land Agency, seeking to see if they own any real estate property, yes, that's what that was about, netted 7 fishes. They received 7 witness statements from the NLA concerning 2 of the companies and 2 of the persons that were sent to them to investigate on the IC's behalf. So 2 companies owned real estate and 2 of the persons owned real estate. Is that what that's saying? On the 19th, they received the information now from the company's office. 7 statements also on 3 persons and 4 of the companies. In other words, they sent for 3, they ended up with 4. That's because apparently they discovered the foundation, which is called Positive, what is it called now? Positive Jamaica Foundation. That's the name of that foundation, all right? Then now, at various times in August 2023, on August 10 mainly, the Director of Investigation requested witness statements from NCB Capital Market and Barita on 4 accounts They never said who the accounts belong to, whether it's Holness or the companies. All right, so we don't know that yet. So having gotten some information, they had requested that Holness meet with them August 31 for a second time. And that arrangement was made for the interview at the Office of the Prime Minister, August 31, 2023, 10 a.m. in the morning. And at that meeting, the Director of Investigation and his team met with the Prime Minister, and the Director explained to the Prime Minister what was the genesis of the current investigation. It was, he said, due to a possible disproportionality of assets linked to the large movement of funds between the business owned solely or partially by Holness. So it was really the companies and the monies that were moving between the companies that caused the raising of their eyebrows, more or less. So that was understood. After those deliberations, the Director of Investigation told the Prime Minister he will be provided with written questions to which he was required to provide written responses, witness, This might go to court, so they need to have everything in writing, both the questions and the responses. But the Integrity Commission did not only ask Holness to respond to questions in writing, they also asked all the persons who were associated with the three companies and the foundation to also answer questions, written questions that were sent to them, and they were to write back their responses. They were to submit written responses. You're following that? So you have the investigation now, you have to check out everybody. Now, the persons associated with the company and the various companies Holness is associated with, they were either directors or shareholders. So you have persons like Holness's sister, Anderson. She was being sent questions pertaining to her association with the company as a shareholder and director. You have Mark Azan, who was a director of Positive Media. You have Norman Brown, who was a director and shareholder of Estate Bridge. You have, I believe it's a parliamentarian, Donovan Williams. He was the company secretary, apparently in all three, because they didn't specify, so I guess he was the company secretary. And then they were investigating this other gentleman, Everton Murray, who is the director of a company called Green Emerald Trading out in the country. But they wanted to know what was his association with Positive Media. So questions were sent to them, and they were required to submit witness statements to the Integrity Commission by a certain date. Then now, they gone again to do some more investigation. I suspect it is either information that they got from the companies or information they got from Holness, or perhaps responses from the various persons that they requested information from, because they started to contact, they wrote to and request witness statements from additional institutions. For example, they wanted Jamaica National Bank, that is for Holness account, they wanted information before 2021 when he had an account with them. And of the three companies, they requested witness statements from Scotia Insurance for Holness, JMB Bank for Holness, CIBC for Holness, as well as Mayberry Investments. Why am I telling you to make notes in us? Because when I was making that video analyzing Mr. Holness's statutory declarations, which were gazetted, I saw where he was making a pile of money based on the shares that he was buying, as well as the movement of his money in and out of various accounts. So he was moving money from one account to the next account and so on. And he was buying shares, he was moving in money in Jamaican dollar, then US dollars. So it clearly has somebody managing his accounts. And I was wondering where he had this money and who were his, the people who were buying these stocks for him and recommending these stocks for him, where he was making a pile of money. I wondered, well, these are the places: Mayberry, NCB Capital Market, Barita, that's where he went and he was making a pile of money. They were making a pile of money for him. The IC sent another request for information and witness statements to NCB Private Banking. They sent several requests to them, right? This time around, they were requesting more information on certain transactions in the Positive Media accounts. This time around, what the IC wanted was the identity of the depositors to this account, right? My impression here is that they wanted the identity of all of the depositors to this account so they can check them out. See how thorough they were, right? So during the course of January 2024 now, so it's this year, the information that they requested in writing and all the witness statements they requested from the financial institutions and the government, departments and so on, they were trickling in. They came in. The last of them, of course, was received on the 31st of January 2024. So now that the Director of Investigation has gathered all of the information that they wanted to know about these companies, their accounts, who the directors were, whether or not they own other properties, real estate properties, whether or not they have any other companies they're associated with. And he requested and received his witness statements. The account that he wanted to know about in particular was the Positive Media. He received the information from NCB Private Banking of the depositors to the accounts. He went and checked out Mr. Murray, who was affiliated. He wanted to know what was the nature of his affiliation or relationship with Positive Media. He got all his statements from Mr. Donovan Williams, from Mark Azan, from Norman Brown. He got his information from the land agency, as we said before, tax administration about the motor vehicles they may own, both them and the companies. He had the record now, the written statements from all of these agencies, including the supporting documents, I am sure, on microfilm, if I remember right. And so he was now ready to meet again with Andrew Holness to give him an update as well as ask more questions. That meeting took place February 2, 2024. The Prime Minister also received further supplementary questions. I suppose supplementary meaning is a backup question for some other questions that he was asked before. So these were 5 of them. So you can see why he was so distracted during the local government elections, because that was what was going on at the time, the campaign. So the Director of Investigation then wrote and requested statements, not done yet, on the annual tax returns that were filed by the 3 companies with the Tax Administration Jamaica. And that was done on the 7th of February. So he wanted to know what was it that they declared. I do believe in the course of the investigation, they also requested information from the auditors that audited the accounts of these companies. So the PM sent in his responses to the supplementary questions. They sent letters again to Holness and his attorney asking for explanation about particular transactions in one of his accounts, his personal accounts. And that was done on February 28. The requested witness statements from Barita about a share acquisition and a loan. They requested information and witness statements from Jamaica National Bank about some cardless cash deposit that was made to Holness's account. You see what I'm thorough? They requested witness statements on the annual returns that was submitted by the 3 companies to the company's office. When you have companies, you have to submit annual returns to the company's office. Why they never asked about it before, I don't know. They probably just forgot, or maybe it wasn't time yet for that information. Again, they requested statements, on annual returns, not only of the 3 companies, but they were interested in Mr. Murray's company, Green Emerald Trading, as well. And they got that from the company's office. They requested statements from the Jamaica Stock Exchange on stocks traded by Holness and Imperium. You see, then go everywhere now. That's exactly where they need to go, all over the place. Them sell shares and buy shares, them need information. They have to go to the source, the stock exchange. Then now, there was a request for information on a development called Waycliffe Close Development. I have a feeling that this was the one that Holness kind of said never had anything to do with it. And this may be the one that might be associated with Mrs. Holness, but we will find that out in due course. They wanted and they received construction management and building contract articles of agreement. So they must have been building some townhouses or some apartments or something at that address. And they wanted to see what the nature of the agreements were with the persons who were buying. This Waycliffe Close development could be that of one of his companies or his wife. They never really said, why they were asking for it, which company it was associated with. But if I recall correctly, initially when they had asked, he had hesitated. He had given them some arguments and said, I never want to do it because it's nothing to do with his statutory declaration. I suspect it was Mrs. Holness's development, but they wanted to know about it all the same. And then he acquiesced and sent the information to them in due course. And clearly they were satisfied with whatever it was that was written in those documents. Then Estate Bridge bought 2 real estate properties from a company called Chemtech in one of their developments in Trelawney, Stonebrook Manor. That was the name of the complex, right? There are some standalone houses, if I recall correctly. And they requested, again, from NCB Capital Market, they wanted now witness statements concerning investments, loans held by the company Estate Bridge. So Estate Bridge got an investment loan from the NCB, and they're inquiring about it. Seems as if they were also inquiring about other transactions from BNS. They wanted transactional data from 2018 until 2024. In other words, the accounts that he had with them, they wanted information all the way back to 2018 when they just started. For the first declaration, which they already passed, but them a check. So they go all the way back to 2018. And they wanted all of the transactions in that account, all the way up to 2024. You see how thorough? Good. They then know, and this is for Holness's account, they then wrote and requested witness statements also from Jamaica National Bank from 2018 to 2019, when he had the account with them. So, like the Bank of Nova Scotia, Jamaica National Bank had to send to the Director of Investigation statements going as far back as 2018 to 2019 when Holness had his account with them. Monthly statements is what they would submit, and they would go through it and check to see to see the deposits and the withdrawals, and if they have any questions they ask for more information. That was the purpose of that. Also on May 8th, and this is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. Yay! On May 8th, the Integrity Commission requested witness statements from Stocks and Securities Limited. You remember them? SSL, the people who can't account for Bolt's money. Yes, they requested information from SSL, and they wanted it in the form of a witness statement for the period 2018 to present relating to the transactions conducted on behalf of Mr. Holness and ADMAT. You remember ADMAT? It is Adam and Matthew, the name of his 2 sons. That was a company that was registered in St. Lucia in the offshore banking system. And Holness said that it was he and his 2 sons were owners of the company, and he was the director, managing director, I suppose. So they also received information from them 2018 to present. He reported that they received the witness statements from Stocks and Securities Limited on May 21, 2024. So they received the information 13 days later from SSL. So at the time when ADMAT existed, certainly from 2018, SSL was handling the securities, whatever trading they were doing and whatever business they were doing on behalf of ADMAT. They were the ones who were doing it. So even though the company was registered in St. Lucia, they had a Jamaican company that was doing their business for them. So the taxes would have been paid here for those transactions. All right. Then now they asked Berita for a witness statement. All of this was done on May 8th. So they got information and decided to send out to these people. Berita about acquisition of shares by Imperium. So Imperium bought some shares. They want to know something about it. They wanted witness statements from NCB Capital Market to explain now the source of funding for investments held by Holness. And this request was made of them June 27, 2024, this year, just the other day. They also wanted to know about the bonds held by him previously, and they particularly wanted to know about the investment held by Holness, which was purchased in 2019. Man, were they digging. At 2021, I'm supposed to investigate, and then gone all the way back, because clearly when they started to dig, other information came up and them dig and adjust so it go on. And so this is how them ended up now, way back. They also wanted witness statements from a former officer who was employed to the NCB Capital Market in 2019 about those same investments that were made then, right? All information that they requested from the institutions, from the TAJ, all of them were received by the Director of Investigation by August 30, which also included information from the TAJ about the returns. We had spoken about that, right? So by August 30, which was the other day, 2024, he had now all the information he needed, right? Going all the way back to 2018. Now you will recall that 12 days before that, when the Director of Investigation had all his information, so he was now ready to put his findings into a report. On the 30th was when he received all information and ready now to prepare his report. You will recall that 12 days before that, on the 18th of August 2024, at the People's National Party Women's Movement Conference, Julian Robinson got up and told the audience that they are to expect a report from the Integrity Commission in September, bearing in mind that Parliament was out, but the report would come in September before the convening of Parliament, which was the 17th, and that when that report dropped, it would be bangarang. How did Julian Robinson know that? Who told him? Who could have told him more than somebody inside the Director of Investigations department? And what he was told was that the Director of Investigation had intentions to refer the matter to the Director of Corruption Prosecution, recommending to her that Holness be charged for making false statements on his declaration. That was what somebody told Julian Robinson, or he got it from somebody who claimed that they got it on good standing, right? They got good information, so him could go out and repeat it. So there can be no doubt about it that somebody in Integrity Commission leaked that information. And since the Mr. Seymour Panton came out with his letter warning everybody, the public and the newspaper, but seemed not to have the guts to warn Julian Robinson, when he ought to, since he knows that it is illegal for him to be saying these things out in public. They should summons his ass before the Integrity Commission and question him under the same section that the judge quoted. Yeah, question him under that section for breaches of the Integrity Commission Act. Why you not do that? Anyway, getting back to business. So, Julian got his information clearly out of the Director of Investigations office. He seemed not to have had, or whoever told him that that was the case, seemed not to have had any connections in the Director of Corruption Prosecution, because then he would have known that she recommended or she rejected the recommendation, and she gave her reasons. So this now, in conclusion of my analysis, was a thorough investigation done by the Integrity Commission into the statutory declarations of Andrew Holness, his accounts at the various institutions and banks, the companies that he owns, the properties that he owns, the properties that the persons who are associated with the companies, what they own, the loans that Holness and the companies had, the shares that were transacted, as well as even the list of persons who or companies that deposited to one of the company's accounts. They looked into his banking deposits and withdrawals from as far back as 2018 when they started, all the way up to 2024. It was a thorough and complete investigation. And evidently, they found nothing. And in some ways, that is amazing. Because when you're handling this amount of money, these amounts of transactions with all these various entities, companies, and so on, and for there to be nothing, he has not only good persons who are handling his investments, he clearly has a good accountant too. Because outside of those accounts that were left off, the initial 2021 statutory declaration, the bank accounts, there was nothing. So evidently, they were able to find the source, because remember, they asked the capital market and NCB and all of them, for the source of the Prime Minister's income. They were asked that what was the source of the income you were using to invest on Andrew Holness's behalf, and clearly they were able to satisfy them. And when you think about it, it's really simple. His investments really were buying shares and selling shares, development into a property, buying of real estate property, and possibly ownership of motor cars. I never mentioned that, but we assume that they found ownership of motor cars. So those are really simple transactions. But they then now want to go back all the way to 2018 to see if they could find anything, any irregularities in terms of deposits to the accounts by him or anybody else who would have made deposits. And they couldn't find anything. What they were left with when they finished is that this man is as clean as a whistle. This man, Andrew Holness, who has been vilified by mostly comrades, well, mainly comrades, and I must confess, even me, yes, I did treat you real bad, and I have to apologize to you most sincerely. I hope you accept it, for saying so many unkind things and even thinking worse about what I believe your situation and your finances were. This is telling us that this man is as clean as a whistle. as clean as a whistle. And it is good, and I think he should be happy in the end, that they went and did all this investigation, because it only proves what he was saying and what some others were saying about him, that he, well, the only conclusion we can come to is that this is an honest man who apparently is very unfortunate to have a bunch of crooks around him. And we saw what he did with those persons. He flung them underneath the bus. I mean, what other conclusion could we be left with after this thorough investigations? And they found nothing. And except for the 4 accounts that he had left off, his 2021 statutory declaration. They found nothing by way of any suggestion of illicit enrichment. They investigated the companies, they found nothing. The only thing that was recommended to the Director of Corruption Prosecution by the Director of Investigation was that he should be charged for making false statements on his declarations, which would have been the 4 accounts that he left off, the ones that had his parents in it, and that was rejected by the Director of Corruption Prosecutions, and she gave her reasons and find case laws to back her up. For me personally, I am happy. Yes, we might be political opponents, but for the position that he holds as Prime Minister, if it had gone south, it would have been very bad for all of us, especially those in business who transact in business abroad. So I am happy for the outcome. We can beat him at the polls, not with that traitor leading the PNP, of course. As soon as we get rid of him, we find ourselves a genuine Manleyite and Normanite to run the PNP. And then we can give Holness a whipping and send him home. Andrew Holness's statutory declarations, though, are not yet certified. There is another government entity, the FID. They are also doing their investigations. So as soon as they are done, I guess they'll report back to the Integrity Commission, and they will see what they find, if they are able to find anything at all. And as a reminder, I recall now that the Integrity Commission also commissioned a forensic investigator to look into his accounts and his affairs. And they said they didn't find anything illegal in it, and they passed it. And their own investigations turn up the same thing, but we still have the FID to come. So we will see what that is about. So what will I have for you next? We're going to look now closer at the Integrity Commission. This was just the timeline I was giving you and what it was and how in-depth the investigation was. Tomorrow now, I'm going to come now with another look at his and this investigation, because I think I discovered how Andrew Holness makes so much money. It is right there in the report, and I don't know if anybody noticed it, but me notice it. So tune in tomorrow to get that information. And everybody line up your money, Scrape it up anyway you must scrape it up from. Borrow it anyway you must borrow it from. Because, make I tell you something. When you hear how Andrew earned his money, I am telling you, I have never seen anything like this in all my born days. Believe it or not. And I've seen many and heard of many. Anyway, remember to like the video, share, as well as leave your comments in the comment section. I think that's all I have for you today. You take good care of yourself until tomorrow, and walk good.